switch over to another language, English. And this is why the first speaker, she is from England. And she will introduce herself as Mary Dhonau. And you pronounce it in the Dutch way. She has a name that in Holland we can pronounce well, as the river Donau. Yes, but in England it's impossible to pronounce, I understood from you. She is a real life experienced person related to flooding. And she's civilian. Yes? And you're a citizen experiencing flooding. I have 3 hats here. A green hat, a yellow hat, and a red hat. Everybody has 20 minutes. Yes? The first 15 minutes, I have the green hat. Then, when it's over, then we have 5 minutes for discussion. Then I have the yellow hat, and when I have the red hat, it's over. Yes? It's for all the people who give a presentation. Yes? Okay. Now I can give the floor to Mary Dhonau. Okay.
I have told them to hide your red hat. When a flood warning is issued for England, my phone doesn't stop ringing. It is the media asking me to stand in front of TV cameras or to talk on the radio about how individuals should both prepare for and recover from flooding. My story is consistent. Individuals should move their cars to a place of safety, as floodwater has the power to move cars, and the last thing people want to have is their cars washed away, as well as their homes. I say that individual safety must come first on all occasions, and that as soon as a flood warning comes, children, the elderly, vulnerable, and pets should be immediately taken to a place of safety. Then, if time allows, belongings, especially sentimental items and documents, should be moved upstairs. I believe strongly in planning in advance for flood, as when you get a flood warning, your mind can go into overdrive and not be able to focus properly. Having something written down can help people to manage. I also encourage people to think about protecting their own homes from being flooded using property-level resilience products. There is so much individuals can do to reduce flood risk, and I happily talk through the process. Recovery from a flood is a horrible process. I will talk people through what it is like when the first time they go back into their home and what to do. I advise that disposable gloves should be worn at all times, as flood water is contaminated. Photographs and videos of the devastation should be taken for insurance purposes. I then talk about how to go about removing wet belongings to enable the drying process to start. My day can be a constant round of TV, radio interviews. One day I gave over 25 back-to-back radio interviews during one afternoon. So this is my hometown of Worcester, and Worcester is very well known for being flooded, and as you can see there are swans swimming in the street. And this is my street. It is not on a floodplain, so I didn't expect a flood. And this is it after just a short time, and again a few hours later. And of course that flood water goes into our homes. And these are photographs of the inside of my home. The first time we were flooded, and I didn't expect a flood, my son in the top bedroom had a downstairs bedroom, and he called me to say that his bedroom was full of flood water and it stank. It was sewage, and we had other people's toilet paper in our homes. I know it wasn't our toilet paper because we don't use blue toilet paper. And as you can see, the man on the left is sweeping up poo. And when the flood water had gone from my house, we had to sweep up the same. And we also had dry poo inside our plug sockets. The photographs I will show you have been given to me by the people I have supported over the last 16 years since I was first flooded. And this is what people say to us: you are just a column in a newspaper or a scene on a television programme, but to us, we've lost our lives as we knew them. And this is a picture of one small village in Gloucestershire when every house was flooded, the school was flooded, the pub was flooded. Pubs are very important in England, we need them. And the church was flooded. And this is the aftermath in people's homes. And can you imagine how traumatic it is to be pushed out of your home in a hurry with just the baby's changing bag? And these are very typical photographs in the inside of people's homes. 5 million people are at risk of flooding in England, and we regularly flood. And can you imagine what it's like to be rescued from your home like this? It's a very traumatic experience, especially in the middle of the night. And flooding comes at any time of the year. I apologise for the Christmas pictures, but this was Christmas Eve in Tunbridge Wells. It was baby's first Christmas. Both sets of grandparents were staying, and all the baby's presents, it should have been a happy time, all the baby's presents got washed away. Somebody's birthday in Oxford, so it does flood on people's birthdays too. And this is the aftermath. The photograph of the street was given to me by the Environment Agency, and that was Boston after the tidal floods in 2015 and 14. And in England, we often get put in caravans, not up there, this is one being delivered, but many people live in caravans for a year or 2 years. And this is after the minister has gone, and perhaps the Prince of Wales, he often kindly visits, and the media. The media are very interested when it first happens, and then they lose interest. And in England, we get cowboys and sharks coming, knocking on our door, saying that they will fix our house for free, for very little money, and it's always a big disaster. We all have stresses in our lives, things we are all worrying about. Every one of us has got something we worry about. But when you are flooded, you get so many more worries. Where is the loss adjuster? Where is the builder? A lot of financial worries. And it can be very, very stressful. I have, because of my experience and listening to other people, I have written a guide on Flood Recovery Guide, which is a free download on the knowyourfloodrisk.co.uk website. And it's very welcome because it tells people they are not going mad as a result of being flooded. It is very stressful and they will get through it. So during the last decade or so, we have seen so many more floods in England. So what can people do to become more resilient to flooding? I always say that Noah was the first person to know about flooding, but perhaps, I don't know why he saved wasps. If somebody could tell me, because I don't like wasps, but he was prepared. And in England, we get flood warnings from the Environment Agency, and if we can't, we can get a telemetry system that will ring people up, small villages, to let them know that they're going to be flooded. I believe very strongly that we should think about looking after our environment and not putting concrete and hard paving everywhere. So I encourage individuals to think about permeable paving. This is my own town garden, my own small garden, and I use gravel and a water butt. I also, my partner drew this picture of me making a family flood plan, that working with your all your family. And I did this, and when I was flooded again in 2007, I was not in. My teenage sons found the flood plan, and by the time I got home, all my furniture was upstairs. And they knew where to get plastic boxes and what to do, because when you get a flood warning, your heart can go pitter-patter and your mind into overdrive, but writing things down can really help. It's much better to plan in advance rather than do this when the floodwater is there. I have written on my own website a plan to help people think about what to do first when they flood. And I also encourage communities to plan and to help others, to help the elderly and the disabled when moving their furniture and things to place of safety. And I believe strongly that those that manage floods should work with communities, because communities are often the experts in how floods happen and what bit of the river goes first, which drain will flood first. So you can learn from the citizen. I hate sandbags. In England, we use sandbags all the time for flooding. This is a wonderful picture of sandbags not working. When Somerset flooded, they sent me this picture on Twitter. That was a pile of sandbags after being flooded. They wanted sandbags dreadfully. They kept calling for sandbags. Now in Somerset, they never want to see a sandbag again. That smelt like rotting fish. Horrible. Floodwater can get into a home through many ways. And these are some examples of property level protection, or the government prefer to call them resilience, working. And as you can see, the postman is delivering the post the wrong side of the flood protection product. Many houses have been saved by property level protection. You can see the bottom photograph, there's a pair, it's not very clear, a pair of red shoes the other side of the door. With the floodwater out on the wrong side. Many people didn't use these, and they all went to see the family that had saved their own home from flooding to find out where they could purchase these products. I always say to look for a kite mark. This is another example of sandbags not working and property level resilience working. This is along the River Thames in 2014 when we had very bad floods. And another one with the dogs, nice and dry, and the mother in the garden. And this one is overland runoff from agricultural field, from a farmer's field. And they just had these flood protection products fitted when this land mud came down. And it had already flooded the house very badly on several occasions, and it stopped it this time. These are ordinary looking front doors that the minute they are locked, they can stop the floodwater from getting in the house. We have a lot of air bricks in England. 5,000 litres of water an hour can get into your home through the air bricks. So protecting your air bricks, particularly in surface water flooding, which we have 2/3 of insurance claims in 2007, and half were from surface water flooding, not from river flooding. This kind of protection can really help homes. And we've got self-closing air bricks now that will stop the flood water from getting in. So the minute the flood water comes, they close themselves. We use pumps, a lot of pumping from underneath when groundwater happens. And these are all sorts of things. Toilet bungs, we put down our toilets to stop the flood water coming, and anti-backflow valves for both washing machines and our main drains. We have self-rising barriers on our drives now that the minute the flood water comes, they rise up. And all sorts of things. This bungalow had flooded on many occasions from surface water flooding, running down hills. This stopped them from happening. This is a rapid dam that communities can have, that they can store, and if they get a flood warning, can put it up. They all have a kite mark, so it always shows that they've been tested by government. Now, these are sandbags again. They cost so much more money. They are not environmentally friendly, and they have to be thrown away. Where this, it's called a water gate, and it can literally be put up very quickly and washed down and used again, and it is cheaper than the same amount of sandbags. So where do people get information? I've written things on my own website. in England, we have a charity called the National Flood Forum that I started. I had to leave because I didn't have the brains to develop it as a big business. I'm a community person, so I stepped aside to let somebody else who had a business brain develop it into a very big organisation. And it's doing very well, and I'm proud of it. But we've got a Blue Pages directory that people can use. But I always say to watch out for quality, because if somebody invents something in his shed, he can sell it in the Blue Pages, and people don't know about quality. I have written a guide. Yes, I do hope we don't land up like this. So people can find out a lot about how to protect their homes through this guide, and it's a free guide on the Know Your Flood Risk website. Also, we have a very good trade body in England that it is very difficult to get into. You have to apply, and a lot of people are turned away because their quality is not good enough. There is a flood protection group within there, so they are good people, good guys, and I recommend that people go there. Now, it's not always possible to keep the water out. It's often very deep. So I did this to my home, and I feel evangelical about adapting our homes. Climate change is with us now. Flooding is going to get worse. So we have to adapt our homes to let the flood water in, but not do much damage. I was displaced for 9 months. By making your home resilient to flooding, you can either move downstairs very quickly, as I did after I made my home flood resilient. And I was in one house, and I will show the photo, and he'd moved downstairs after 10 days after having 5 foot of water in his house. So this is a kitchen where they've got all the goods raised on top. I've got a yellow hat now. And this is it pumping out. And this is, do you remember the green kitchen earlier on with all the flood water? This is solid wood. He just washed it down after the flood and carried on using it. And this is the house in Cockermouth, 10 days after the flood, 5 foot deep. He had a Christmas tree up, and he was putting his things back in his kitchen when I was there. And this is a quick case study of a village in Gloucestershire that regularly flooded. People were rescued by a helicopter from this flood. And this is my friend who lived in the caravan on the ground for 2 years, whilst her home was being repaired. So she's put in a steel and acrylic kitchen that can be washed down. You can see she has stone flooring. She's put her television up high, her boilers up high, where is it? She's got plastic seats in the kitchen and oak fittings everywhere. And she's got a demountable radiator and has put her fireplace up higher, her boiler up higher, her oil tank up higher. She's got an open plan oak staircase. Her bookcase can be demounted and carried upstairs. She has lightweight furniture and a collapsible table. So that's me finished, but I really think that is the way to go. We have to be flood resilient, and whilst this is a beautiful picture, it's not so beautiful when it's outside your window. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I told you.
It was very right on time.
Yes, I told you.
And are there any questions from the audience?
I normally make people stop talking.
I'm wondering, was there a question? Oh, there's a question.
What way does the government...
Wait. You have to wait for the microphone because everything is recorded, isn't it? Yes, it is.
Okay, I would like to know in what way the government give support.
Well, the government gives support through the Environment Agency, and during our last flood, they have given everybody a grant of £5,000 to use towards either property level resilience products or adapting the inside of their house. They also invest heavily in flood risk management. They did have a big cutback because we are in deficit in our country, and they did cut back, but then we had very, very big floods and they had to invest more money. I don't think that the UK government take flooding seriously enough. It is the biggest natural peril we face, and I still think they need to invest far more money into flood risk management.
And are you happy about the role of the government?
I think they need to listen to me a little bit more.
Okay. I've heard that they are very good in making plans.
They make a lot of plans and they have a lot of studies and reviews after big floods, and then they file them and don't do anything about it. They did a very big review after 2007. It was very extensive, and a lot of those things have been put into practice, but I still don't think they are thinking outside the box. They are not thinking about catchment management and how to slow the flow. They are not thinking about natural flood management. Flood management is a jigsaw puzzle, not just one fix. We have to put lots of pieces together to reduce our overall flood risk, and that includes taking climate change seriously too.
Okay, also what you said, that you need a practical knowledge and not a theoretical knowledge to cope with a good plan, to cope with the situation.
You need a bit of everything. You need practical knowledge. You need to work with communities, and we have changed a lot since I was first flooded in the year 2000 to work with communities, because it is their practical experience and their local knowledge that can help those engineers work things to reduce flood risk. So it's not just one body that should work in flood risk management. It is everybody collectively working together.
Okay, one last question. 2 questions. Okay, she has a travel bonus because she comes from England. Okay, 2 questions. Yes? Okay, first and then you, okay?
Thank you very much for this information. You advise that houses, people make their house flood resilience. Do you also see that communities make their community flood resistance? And then I think about the polders in the Netherlands 700 years ago.
I do indeed, and I worked, the government actually, I worked with one community after 55,000 properties were flooded in 2007, and they asked my help. I said to them, you help yourselves, and I told them what to do, and they did that. Had I had an hour to present, I'd have put that story in too, because they have helped themselves. They have gone into the ditches, they have their own emergency plans, they have their own flood warning system, and the community is very resilient. And the government got to hear of this community and funded a project for many, many communities to do something called a Pathfinder project. And that has been reported upon, and there were 13 projects, 13 funded projects within many communities, and I spent a year working in Northamptonshire helping communities to manage their own flood event, and they have their own emergency flood store, they have their flood plans, and they have flood wardens, so that those communities are now resilient to flooding. And again, they can manage a flood until they can cope with it, until the fire and the council and the environment agency can get there to help them as well.
A short question.
Yes, a short question.
Gert-Jan
Wientjes, Tripsalute. For the picture, how many people are involved? Is it hundreds, thousands? You're talking about communities, or even 10,000s of civilians?
It is thousands of communities. Whenever there's a big flood, communities want to get managed to start helping. They don't show too much interest before they're flooded, sadly. And I go into communities to try and encourage them to be aware, but it's after a flood. There are well over 250 community flood action groups that I know of. There are also many, many others that are not formal, and many parish councils and many communities all now have emergency plans and get involved. Because flooding is so regular in England, and big floods are so regular, people are now having to wake up and smell the flood water.
Okay, we can learn from them, and we are all before the big flood, isn't it? Yeah. Thank you very much,
It's my
Mary
pleasure.
Dhonau.
My pleasure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very.